Do you think there are going to be a bunch of people who come in and ask things live? Was there a lot of interest?
The event itself says that 18 people are interested, so I don't know.
Okay. I kind of doubt that all 18 are going to show up, but maybe we'll get a quarter.
Expect to.
Yeah. Hello, John.
Uh, Hello?
Hello, I can hear you. Your voice sounds a bit weird.
Sounds a bit weird.
Oh, no, now you sound normal.
Oh. I was really looking forward to looking through my audio drivers.
Okay. No, you sound fine. Hi, Aaron. Hello. Okay. Then I think we've got all of us here. All of us are able to talk. And now we just wait for people to show up. Roll 10 minutes early, even. It's like we planned this or something.
I just go where I'm told.
Great, it looks like we have some people in the audience already. Can we open it up so that everyone can talk for now? Or
Sort of, kind of.
Can everyone else hear us right now?
There's no one else here right now, so.
Oh. There were two people and they just left.
Oh, there's someone. Yeah,
Everyone keeps joining and leaving.
I think they don't understand the concept of stage channels yet. Hey, welcome.
Yeah, so we were going to start at 5 o'clock, so still another 10 minutes or so?
Yep.
Okay.
Is there like a text channel that I should be looking at during this? For anyone that is in the audience?
Oh, I don't think there's one built into this particular UI, but there is a thread. If you go to the announcements channel and you click on the Discord channels link, second message up, then it should take you there.
All right. I don't know. Like, just I Twitch chat and out. Well, I guess are we streaming this? Should I be looking at Twitch chat?
Sorry.
We are streaming this. We are on Twitch. I don't see any comments in Twitch chat right now, though.
Yeah, there's probably. I mean, I doubt we're going to be organically discovered through there. So.
Yeah, but if people post comments there, it's good if we notice.
I do have the chat up, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, got distracted by something else, but yeah, there's that thread just labeled October 1st, so people can go there to chat.
Yeah.
Hey, Pilot. You should have the ability, Pilot, to join the audio chat, audio whatever, if you want to. You don't have to.
And is there a way for us to make it so that people in the audience can also talk so that they can ask questions live?
Yeah, that's the whole point of the stage channel. They request to talk, and then we go, okay, cool, and then we let them talk, and then like it goes back.
Got it.
I do wish there was like a text chat connected to this thing. It's kind of weird that there isn't.
Yes, they've got it like built into all the other voice channels now, right?
Yeah, like why not put one in this one? I don't know. Yeah, but I can like this thread and the announcements too.
Yeah, while we're waiting for it to start, I want to test out the audience questions thing. Just because I've never used this before, so I want to see how the buttons work.
Yeah, that would require someone that doesn't already.
So we have a couple people in the audience, SD Rock and Pilot. Do either of you have like a button to request to join the stage?
Yeah, Pilot can already join because he has permissions.
Welcome here. SD Rock, do you have a button to request to join the stage?
Yeah, he does.
Awesome. I think let's let him in, make sure the mic works and stuff.
I mean, not everyone has a mic, so I can't force you to talk if you don't want to, but I did send you an invite.
So after there's an invite, is there another button that you have to press, like an actual join stage button? Oh, hello.
Hey, sorry about that.
Hey, yeah.
Hello.
That's how it works.
It does work. Fantastic.
Uh-huh. Yeah, great to see that. So yeah, we'll probably be doing this through the event for people who have questions, especially if a lot more people show up so that we don't have everyone talking over each other.
Yep.
Yeah. But for now, we're just hanging out and waiting for it to start.
Yeah, pilot can mark every question with sus.
There's a lot of good questions in that channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I want to test here. I'm gonna see. Can I make someone leave the stage? Yes, I can. Neat. And Estee Rock, thank you for helping us test. I'll pull you out
Yeah.
for now until you have a question later.
Sounds good.
Oh boy, we're starting to get questions.
And is this going to be recorded?
Yeah, Twitch will automatically save the video and then I can upload it to YouTube later. But it'll also just, appear on Twitch.
Awesome. Just one more minute.
What are these? Water gun? Oh no. I'm not threatening you to come listen, just letting you know.
It's the middle of October, and it's hot enough that I have my fan on right now, and I'm not about it.
Yeah, we're hitting some record highs. I mean, it's not that they're actually that high, it's just not usually this hot this late.
Yeah,
Over here, it's almost freezing.
Wow.
I
At least
have
it
it.
feels that way. Yeah, it is 5 o'clock Pacific time now, though. So should we get started?
Yeah, I think so. Looks like there's 4 people in here right now. Do y'all have a question you want to ask in either voice, or you can just raise your hand and put something in the text chat, and I'll be checking there too.
We
Oh.
start off with some introductions.
Oh yeah, if you can do that.
Great idea. So yeah, introductions. Hey there, everyone. I'm Rory. I'm the lead developer for Superfly. I've been working on the project for about 4 years now. And I do a lot of the programming for the game. So if you've got any questions about the code or the design for most of the gameplay, then I'm a good person to ask about that.
Yeah. I may have you've probably seen me around if you do anything on the server at all. I've been working on the project for a little over 2 years now, and I do the community management, social media stuff, as well as I did some of the art in the game, most notably the icons you see around your hands.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, go.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Hello, sir.
I'm gonna go. Hello, I'm John. I've been involved with this project for I think 2.5 years at this point. I've done kind of a little bit of everything on the project at this point. I made most of the achievement icons that you see on Steam. I did about half the work on the turret boss, finishing it up before it came out. And for a while, I was referred to as the person that does the business, just looking into anything logistically business IP related. But I think props to the rest of the team, Maeve and Rory, for picking up some of that in more recent time.
The business.
Hi, my name's Aaron. I am a software developer on the game. If you ever played the tutorial, that was me. But with the help of another teammate's voice, is the Dr. Suffer. I've also worked on some other features and some features that have yet to come out in the game. So interesting to look forward to that.
And yeah, well, we can talk about those today if anyone's curious. But we should get started with questions. And we did have a bunch of questions in the text chat, but for everyone who's joining us here now, I think you all get priority. So ask away. Maeve, what do people have to do if they want to ask a question in voice right now?
Yeah, so there should be a button at the bottom of your screen that says like request to speak or something, request to join the stage, something like that. And if you click on that button, then we'll see your request come up. It's essentially kind of like raising your hand, like in a Zoom call or something. And then we can invite you to speak. And if you don't want to chat in voice, because I know we don't do that a lot around here, you can just raise your hand and you can type something into that October 1st thread that's linked in the announcement channel. We'll see it there too. But someone's going to have to, there's 5 of you here. I know a couple of you are staff members and one of you is my husband, but someone's got to ask a question.
Or we could just sit here in silence for an hour. Oh, hi, Jake.
I mean, yes? Oh my God, why do you need me to clarify this?
For everyone in the audience, Jake just joined the call. He's another developer for Superfly, and Jake and Maeve are married.
Yeah.
They actually just got married a month ago, right?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so for those who might have just joined or whatever, raise your hand. And if you have a text question, put it in the October 1st thread. If you have a voice question, just let us know that you want to chat in voice. You just say, I want to chat in voice in the same text thread or something.
Yeah.
Spooky. Question. Gotta raise your hand.
It looks like we did get at least one question by someone in the audience. Seeing new powers asked by Gabe26. So, I think I can start talking about that, but then John, you might have a bit to add. New powers. Yes, new powers confirmed. We are currently looking to add 4 new powers to Superfly. We currently have pretty solid prototypes for 2 out of those 4, and we have design concepts that we don't have actual implementations for the other 2. So I've been working on a prototype for a giant size power, one that lets you grow really, really, really big, kind of inspired by the superhero Ant-Man. And then the city looks miniature compared to you. The cars along the ground are like toy cars. So then you can pick up the cars, throw them around, slap enemies out of the air. And you could also kind of grab onto the sides of buildings, think like King Kong style, and climb them, or throw yourself through the air. And yeah, it's pretty fun because you can pick up a car off the ground, chuck it into the air, grab the side of the building, throw yourself into the air, grab onto a blimp while you're flying. It's pretty cool. Oh, and it combines with all the other movement modes, because you could still use 2 movement modes at once. So you can do everything else now while giant. And John, do you want to talk a bit about the other new movement mode that we have a prototype for?
Yeah, so the other power that I've been working on prototyping The current name for it we're calling is Blink. This power, the core movement of it is that you can point in any direction with your hand, and with some amount of aim assist for actual enemies or cars or any other object in the environment, or just straight ahead pcast, you can blink to that position in short distances. And every time you do that blink, you actually perform what's ultimately going to be a slash in front of you. So any enemies that are in front of you will take a massive amount of damage, basically getting swiped as if you've got claws, which there might actually be claws just on your hands as well. In addition to that, in case there aren't any enemies around you, you've also got the ability to throw bombs out in front of you, and you can blink to those bombs, which causes them to blow up immediately. And the range on the bombs blinking is much further, so you can toss out like 5 or 6 of them at a time and then just blink between each of them in front of you to travel across the city really quickly. On top of that, you can, of course, just blink to any surface, so any of the buildings, the ground, anything else within a certain set range. We don't want to make this too overpowered in terms of how quickly you can travel, so there is limited range for just going to any location, but when you throw out your bombs, you've got a lot further distance you can blink to them. But that's still in prototype, so we're figuring out some of the... There's quite a lot to figure out with how the targeting works, but it's feeling pretty fun already.
Yeah, you can do things like if there's a cloud of enemy drones in midair, with the current targeting, you can blink to one drone in midair, then while falling, blink to another one, then another one, then another one, and just take out the entire cloud with like a rapid series of dashes. Yeah.
Ed, what are the concepts for the other 2 ideas?
Yeah, so those. These are just design concepts. We don't have prototypes for them. So they are at the stage where we want to add them, but we don't know whether we can add them or if it'll be fun if we do add them. So we definitely are going to add 4 new powers total, but we aren't totally sure what these last 2 powers will be. That said, we have concepts for them. And our concepts for these last 2 powers are, the first of them would be a telekinesis mode. One that you would move by grabbing yourself and using a kind of telekinesis flight to, well, drag or push yourself forward through the air, with probably a lot of control and freedom in exactly where you go and how fast. And you would, of course, be able to pick up objects in the environment with this telekinesis and throw them around. Things like lifting a car into the air and throwing the car into a wall. Maybe even lifting the car while you are standing on it and then riding it around through the city, kind of like a hoverboard. The other concept that we have is for a portals mode. So still a bit undetermined on how the portals will be created, but it'll be something like you create a portal object in the environment, another portal will appear right next to you, and anything that touches the portal next to you, yourself, enemies, objects you throw, will appear at the other portal. And you can use this to, well, teleport around the city, but also to teleport enemies around the city. If you're firing projectiles with another mode, you can teleport those projectiles around, and so on. But yeah, we still need to figure out exactly how the portals are going to appear and how they're going to be created. So again, early design, things could change in the future. But yeah, a lot of these concepts actually came from people in the community, because we've been talking with all of you for the past while, and there's been a lot of great concepts. So I think telekinesis, that one was definitely a suggestion by a community member. Portals, I think I've seen multiple times. The giant size mode has been suggested a ton of times. So yeah, thank all of you for the support and for the ideas, because you're the reason that we're adding these new powers.
All right, well, so yes, there will be new powers. 4 of them, 2 of them we have more solid prototypes, and then the other 2 is sort of in progress. I think the next question after new powers was spooky update with 7 question marks and 5 detective emojis.
So we don't currently have plans for a Halloween update this year. We did one in the past, I think 2 years ago now. But yeah, we are very, very busy with adding these new powers. So unfortunately, we just don't have the time. If we were to do it, it would take time away from the powers that we're working on adding. And while Halloween updates are fun, I feel like having a bunch of new powers to play with would be even more fun. But if you do want a spooky version of Superfly, we do have the kind of upside down mode in the game. And I feel like that's plenty spooky.
It looks like a bunch of people say, yeah, wind power update, L spooky update. The next question was a pilot brought up one of the older questions that someone else had asked, who's not here, I don't think. If you could make another game, any game, what would you make?
Got it. So this is another one that I'll field because I'm a game developer and a game designer at heart, and I'm constantly having new ideas for games to make. And I've also been working on Superfly for 4 years now, and that's a long time. That's like all of high school or all of undergrad. That's 4 years. So imagine spending most of your time working on one project for 4 years in your own life. Superfly, we feel, it's already on full release on Steam. It will hopefully be full release on the Quest Store soon. While we are still working on it right now, we're close to being done with updates for it. And once we are done with updates for Superfly, we are going to move on to other projects. And we have a concept for one. And I can't share the full details on that because I don't want to promise anything that we won't actually be able to deliver. But I can give rough ideas for what it might look like. So this new project, if we were to work on it, would be a VR game. It would be an action game, and it would be focused a bit more on combat, while Superfly is focused a bit more on movement. It would make heavy use of motion controls, and it would probably be a roguelike. But yeah, I don't want to share too much about like what the theme would be or too much of the gameplay because, again, it might not come out, and I don't want to promise something that we'll have to, never release. Yeah, if I were to make a non-commercial game or a non-VR game, I have ideas for those too. These probably won't be published, but I have always really wanted to make a video game about quantum computing, which is kind of what I do for research. But yeah, probably not VR, probably not going to be published, but I think it'd be cool if it happened.
I could maybe chime in as well with my dream idea of a game.
Yeah.
One thing, this is actually, I'm partially stealing this from a friend from a long time ago. There's this show that I'm sure most people have heard of called Sword Art Online. But as someone who's played MMOs for a very long time in my life, I love the idea of massive groups of people doing raids, trying to fight massive bosses all together. And so my friend and I kind of brainstormed this idea of a complete moonshot of what if you took kind of the idea of SAO, not the whole being trapped in VR thing, that's ridiculous, but the concept SAO had of Aincrad, or of, it's Aincrad, right? Yeah. Of the progression is all across the entire server of players, where every boss only gets defeated once, and it's whoever gets to it first that can fight it. And every time one gets defeated, you move up to the next level, and a whole new zone opens up, and everybody has access to that new zone. And there's this level progression everyone goes through the zones, but then at the end of them is just a really hard boss. It takes a really coordinated group, and it is just a race so you can get there. Nobody knows what the next boss is. That would be my moonshot of an idea of basically these living servers where it's like an MMO. Every server has its own kind of legacy of the bosses it's going through. And basically having thousands of people on each of these servers trying to progress through this, basically together or adversarially in a typical MMO format. But the moonshot of this is designing like 100 or more unique boss fights and 100 different levels of unique zones, and the amount of massive content that need to be created for that. So
yeah, because each boss fight is months of work. So if you have 100 boss fights, that's 50 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Hence why this is a moonshot idea. But I can dream.
In your dreams, is this a VR game or a PC game?
I mean, honestly, it could go either way. I haven't tried VR MMOs that much. I'm not I'm familiar with typical desktop, but it'd be interesting to see how you can make 100 unique boss fights in VR with more than one person fighting them. Just from experience of making one boss fight in VR for one person fighting.
Yeah, VR adds a lot of challenges there. All right, what question do we have next?
What was the biggest challenge when making a Superfly?
Questport. It's gotta be that the turret boss, maybe?
I would say Questport. Questport took 2 attempts before we actually got it done.
Yeah. So to elaborate there, the reason why bringing Superfly to the Quest was so hard was because Superfly was already pushing the limits of what desktop computers can handle in terms of graphics and physics and general complexity. And that's like powerful desktop computers, it's pushing their limits. For the Quest, oh god, the Quest is a wonderful VR headset, but in terms of computing power, it's like an old phone and how much it can render onto the screen. So we had to bring a game that was pushing the limits of what a giant computer can do and make it so that it would run at the same speed on, an older phone. And that was a lot of optimization work. And I have a lot of experience in graphics programming. That's kind of like my specialty in games. But there's only so much you can do when you have a city that's this large, and you can't make this city really any smaller because you can move so fast. And you have to have things like the ice trails appearing in real time dynamically. And you have to have really detailed particle effects whenever you destroy enemies and they break apart, because otherwise fighting them isn't good. And you have to have all those particle effects for your movement modes as well, on top of hundreds of objects just around the city to give the city streets detail. It was, lots of figuring out, okay, what's the slowest thing today? How do I make this slowest thing faster? How can I optimize the game more and more and more and more? And that's an optimization challenge that's on top of all the other challenges that come with bringing a game to a new platform. Just like you have to redo the control scheme. You are using code that was written for only a specific library, in our case, Steam VR. Well, the Quest doesn't have Steam VR, so we have to rewrite every part of our code that talks about Steam VR to instead talk about a new VR framework. So lots of effort went into that.
All right. Next up is favorite power.
Ooh, let's each answer that one. I kind of have a soft spot for the wings because they're kind of hard to use, but once you get the hang of them, the fact that they're hard to use makes it so much more rewarding when you do master them. You feel like a bird.
John, what's your favorite power?
I'd probably have to say, overall, probably lightning power. But arms mode just has it just has such a feel to it that I like. It feels way more responsive than the other abilities, and just the way that you really have full control of yourself in it. And also with some of the, I guess, more recent updates, maybe not more recent anymore, but as of at least a year or two ago, fighting enemies with it can get very entertaining. just punching things to dust.
Aaron, what about you?
My favorite power has to be the speed mode. In fact, I liked it so much that it actually inspired me to work on this new mode that's coming out soon. That's just about ready. That's street races. So it's like the regular races, but this time you're in the streets, dodging through cars, rushing through the rings as you try and get to the end as quick as possible. And we've got leaderboards for that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Can't wait to ship that.
All right. I guess for myself, I don't get a chance to play that game as much as the rest of them do because I don't do any of the programming work. But if I had to pick, I kind of like the black hole mode. I feel like it's very underrated, and once you learn how to use it, it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. And especially when you just suck up a giant ball of objects with it. I think I saw a question, which power was the hardest to make? And I want to answer that with the ice mode. The ice mode was the bane of my existence to implement. I think this would have been about 3-4 years ago. I spent an entire week, and I had vacation at the time, so I was doing nothing else but program this for a whole week of just trying to make it so that the graphics for the ice trail would appear at a reasonable performance speed, and that it wouldn't just totally murder your computer to do that. A challenge there is that whenever you use the ice mode, it makes a totally different shape. And that means that the computer has to process this shape, figure out how big it is, where it should be, and then turn it into a 3D model on the fly within the same frame that you press the button to make it. So your computer has 2 milliseconds to totally render and load an entire new 3D model for the ice. And yet it has to do this every frame as you're doing the ice. And the code for that is a mess. It finally works now, though. Oh, but of course I discovered bugs in it later, so I've had to come back to the ice mode probably every few months to fix bugs in that, to make it faster, to make it generate correctly in weird circumstances, that kind of thing.
Oh god. Maeve, will there be a secret cat mode that the player can unlock because you are the cat lady? I don't think so. But Rory, you can tell them about Quantum Cat. They can go play that. That's the secret cat mode.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's a cat mode in Superfly. So yeah, I mentioned earlier that I do quantum computing. I have ideas for quantum computing games. The prototypes that I've made are all cat themed because, well, A, I like cats, and B, Schrodinger's cat is a famous thing from quantum physics. So actually, my profile icon in Discord, little orange cat, that's a sprite that I made for one of those quantum cat game prototypes. And I actually have a link to a playable version for that if anyone's curious. But it's not very fun. It's very confusing. Yeah. What questions do we have now?
As VR devs, what are your thoughts on IK bodies?
IK bodies. Yeah, they can look really nice, but they can also be a bit weird. So I guess just to explain IK bodies for anyone who hasn't heard of them, that's when you use the computer's prediction of where it thinks your body is to draw in your arms and your legs and so on. IK stands for inverse kinematics, and the inverse is instead of your arm determining where your hand is, it uses your hand to determine where your arm is. So games like Blade and Sorcery do that. They render your elbow, for example, based on their best guess for where your hand is. And I think it works for Blade and Sorcery because it needs the realism. We actually tried that for Superfly a long time ago, and it did not really work out here.
I remember making the arms. They were horrific.
Yeah, I think we might have old videos of those stick arms.
Actually, the photo on the Reality website still for this project.
Oh, it has the stick arms in it?
Yeah.
Oh no, we need to update that.
Artifact.
But yeah, I think IK bodies can add a lot to a game when they're done really well. But if they're not done well, they can be. I think they taking a lot of the immersion away. So yeah, that's my opinion. Anyone else have thoughts?
That's why we only have hands.
Yeah, I think I would agree largely with you said, Rory. It's like IK bodies in VR, especially. There's just so many examples of them going. And I know I think it's come a long way, especially in the last couple of years, in terms of being more accurate and not causing that jank. I think it's Pavlov that I remember seeing a ton of different clips of like anytime you take your headset off or like you're not in a position that the game expects you to be in, suddenly it looks like you've turned into a Lovecraftian monster.
Oh yeah, like it thinks your hands are way away from your head because you moved your headset, so now your arms just stretch like spaghetti.
Yeah, yeah, and your head is like coming out of your bunghole, and your legs, your knees are like up to your elbows. It's great, top tier stuff. Yeah, so I think IK from it definitely has its place in like multiplayer, of course. But for single player, I have a hard time rationalizing it unless you really need it.
All right. Anyone have more questions?
Now hear me out.
Oh no.
Holland achievement.
What is that?
What's the achievement though? What do you do to
We're
get
going a step further. I don't know.
it? I mean, that is kind of the main thing of the achievement. So
I don't know. Holland circle.
It's just
Holland
whatever his
sphere.
profile picture is.
Yep, it's just on a random building somewhere.
I mean, he already
it's
has
like
it
Bob's
before.
third cousin.
Oh god, Bob's third cousin. Bob's third cousin is Tom Holland.
New
It's
lore?
canon now.
Scandalous.
Bob's superpower.
What would a Bob superpower be?
You just turn into a ball and then you can't move.
Everything
you touch
explodes.
turns purple. Everything's
No. It's just like the second you switch on the power, you just immediately turn into a ball and you have no hands or anything anymore. You can't switch back. You have to restart the game.
Well, that'd be rough.
You shoot bombs at people.
Well, we
Everything
do
you
have
touch becomes
bouncing in the
Bob.
speed mode. We don't have shooting bobs and also bouncing. Maybe if you use a speed mode with the bounce side grade in one hand, and then maybe the thrusters with the missile in the other hand. Maybe a black hole in the other hand. A black hole looks a bit like Bob. They're both kind of a dark purple. So, I feel like Bob's superpower is already a thing. If you just think about it hard enough. Kind of.
Just have to believe.
Yeah. Well, black hole in one hand, and then speed with the bounce side grade in the other.
Sorry.
Oh.
Okay. If you were to design an ideal VR controller / headset, what kind of features would it have?
Oh, John, do you have any good answers for that? Because I feel like you've been around a lot.
I'm a little biased here. I don't know how many people here have heard of Hapdex, the company. I guess it's been almost like it's probably been at least 6 or 7 years that they've existed. They're based out of San Luis Obispo, but they actually have an office in Seattle. They're a company that's working on haptic gloves. So you can actually, like, in VR, reach out. It has force feedback as well as, I think it's hydraulic based. Basically tiny little pockets along your fingertips in your palm, so that when you actually touch things in VR, it like inflates them to give you the sense of actually touching those objects. And then if you like press against objects, the force feedback restrains your finger so that it feels like it's actually like, you know, you press against a table and it feels like you're pressing against a table. And I've had a chance to try out 2 versions of their gloves, and it is honestly amazing. The only downside is that they are massive, and it requires a giant box that comes with it to actually use it. But, like, to me, ideal VR system would actually have that type of haptic technology built into it, because, you know, full body haptics is a massive challenge, but just finger-based, just hand-based haptics, I think, would do a lot for the sense of realism and the amount of immersion you can get.
And then what kind of parts of the headset would you combine that with?
So, you know, I'm not really like too much of a stickler for headset quality. I'm actually pretty content with where we are in this space. I think one of the areas I would like to see a little bit more is on the audio side of things. You know, if I'm designing an all-in-one headset, not trying to like mod it for, you know, aftermarket parts and things. There's actually a really interesting amount of work going on right now with like 360 audio, actually research into things like, I don't know how many people would know this, but HRTFs, or head-related transfer functions, I think they're called. Basically the idea that everybody's ear is different in shape. And so when you hear a noise out in the world, everyone perceives that noise differently, that sound differently. But when you've got this virtual audio, there has to be an assumption of what the HRTF profile is. So, like, where the audio should sound like it's coming from. It's obviously not actually coming from 360 around you, it's coming from this virtual. So they're basically trying to simulate where the audio is coming from in 360. At the moment, where the tech currently stands is there's these just kind of standardized HRTF profiles that get assigned to everybody. And what that can mean is that in some cases, the audio that you're hearing in VR could be like up to like 15 or 20 or even like 30 degrees off from where it should actually sound like it's coming from, because your own personal HRTF, like, you know, your own shape of your ears could be different than the profile that they're using. And so that's something I think is actually, it's being researched, it's being worked on. I don't think it's going to be commercial soon, but for the headset quality, I think the audio is actually a big thing that we have a lot of advancements to have. How we can make the audio systems actually match your own personal HRTF profiles, or somehow analyze your HRTF profile so that the applications can actually cater to that.
So this would be the headset analyzes the shape of your ear, and then it uses that analysis to make all of the sounds more realistic?
Yeah, basically. And this is like a little biased because this is the research going on in our lab, but this is the kind of things, already some experimentation. Traditionally, the way that you'd figure out someone's HRTF profile would be to have them go into like this enclosed space with like soundproofed walls and this like 360 speaker system, and you'd have to sit in the middle of the room and have the speakers like rotate around your head and like analyze your ear shape and play sounds for you. Obviously a very cumbersome process if you're trying to do this for every person on Earth. But there's research now into how we can actually make this a process that happens like in your own home, you know, starting with something as simple as just like wearing headphones and being in like a 360 application, listening to different sounds, you know, with no visual reference for where they're coming from, and then telling the application which direction they're coming from. And that's how you can like tune an HRTF profile to match your own kind of spatial awareness. But if there was some way that a headset itself could just analyze your HRTF profile just from the actual shape of your ears, that you would be able to skip that process entirely. It would just be a matter of putting on a headset and having the audio work perfectly.
Yeah, that'd be a really cool technology that future headsets could have.
I know that didn't address anything about visual quality, but obviously there's a lot of other stuff there. But I don't. I'll refrain from going into detail there at the moment. I'm not quite as qualified to talk about optics.
You work in a VR lab. You're pretty qualified.
Yeah, but optics is scary, man. That's like physics and math and stuff.
Yeah, that is pretty scary. Fair.
All right. Does Bob have a wife?
I will leave that up to your own heart to decide.
Yeah, there you go. That's the right answer.
We have another question at the bottom. What's your favorite VR game besides Superfly? Maeve, what's your favorite VR game besides Superfly?
Beats. No. Okay. A, you're muted, so they can only hear part of that. B, shush. C, if I had to pick, I have not played a lot of them, but I really like Beat Saber.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to answer the same. Beat Saber. Best VR game out there. Honestly, better than Superfly.
Duh. It's part of the quest. Of course it's better than Superfly. They've sold who knows how many more units than we have.
Hey, I mean, it doesn't have to be that much better than Superfly.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
uh,
Alright, Aaron and John, favorite VR game?
I would probably say either Resident Evil 4, Beat Saber, or Devour. It's one of those three. Gonna go back and forth on. So.
Beat Saber's a strong contender, but actually, I think my favorite VR game is probably Echo Arena. It's like probably one of the only VR games that I think actually works really well as a multiplayer game, and also just the fantasy of getting to play basically the embodiment of Ender's Game is a really cool feeling.
oh yeah, that's great. Do we have any more questions from the people who are here right now, or should we start looking back at the older questions?
Someone is typing.
Mhm. I think
find
we
what-
already did all our favorite powers.
What does best
power,
mean?
though.
What does best mean? The most
Most
broken
OP.
power?
Most broken.
Oh, lightning.
Lightning.
Yeah, definitely lightning.
Yep, you can go so fast. You can have a lot of control.
You have so much damage.
Aaron, are you gonna? This is your opportunity to argue for speed if you disagree.
No, I don't know if I'm gonna argue with that.
What's the funniest bug you've ever encountered in testing?
Oh,
Oh no. There's
I think,
many different answers for that.
it's got to be for me when I was making the tutorial. The voice line started glitching, and I kept hearing Adam's voice play over and over and over again rapidly these lines that I've heard a million times. It was so funny.
And Aaron was already having a mental breakdown because, when you make the tutorial, you have to play the tutorial thousands of times. So if he's already heard these voice lines thousands of times, they're already playing in his head at night when he sleeps.
Now, it's playing endlessly in a loop.
You finally got insane.
Rory, do you have a funniest bug?
Oh, it's hard to think of because I've just seen so many bugs. Come back to me in a bit.
Well, there's only 4 of us here, so.
Well, the most development work I've done was on the turret boss, and there's 2 that come to mind. The first is there was a lot of work to make the turret boss not just instantly kill itself. It had a very large tendency, and it kept finding really creative ways to do it. The most impressive one being, for a while, the mines that it shoots out would actually ricochet off nearby walls and bounce back and just one-shot itself. So that was a fun little fight to have with it. Related one was in tuning how often the special attacks go off that it has. There was a bug at one point that caused the timing on it to just be basically 0. And in testing, the first phase went fine because the first phase attack isn't that bad. But then it just absolutely obliterated me as soon as the second attack triggered, because it just started firing it off constantly. So that was entertaining. It was a humbling experience.
The one that's coming to mind right now for an entertaining bug is I was testing the giant mode recently. And in the giant mode, you can, of course, slap robots out of the air, punch things really well. So to get that to work, I had to rewrite the punching physics more generally. So that's actually another thing that you can expect in this update once we release the movement modes. Punching things normally is also going to work a lot better. But in fixing normal punching, I may have tuned it a little bit wrong, and I may have made punching a little bit too powerful, to the point where I could stand in the middle of a road, hold my hand out, a truck would run into me, and the truck would blow up. Yeah. It was just hilarious that, this truck barrels down on me and I just tap it, it explodes, and I don't budge at all. Let's see, but other kinds of bugs, there's been things where, like, remaking the claw mode, you grab something with the claw, and then as soon as you touch anything with the claw, you just zoom off to infinity. There was a while I was working on testing out a feature where you could, like, rotate in midair, and it would actually rotate your camera. So that ended up being very broken, and then you would start rotating and you would not stop rotating. So then you were just stuck spinning really, really fast and crazy angles. And there was no way to stop. Like, you would land on the ground and you're still rotating constantly. That one was less fun and more nauseating, but it was funny for a bit. Until I had to fix it and then test to make sure it was fixed, and it was not fixed.
It was not fixed. You're like, huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Maeve, do you have any?
Well, the nature of my particular work means I don't really encounter the bugs directly, but in terms of what I've witnessed, most recently when John was showing the development team the blink power, and we discovered you could do a thing where you would blink so fast you just, like, go through walls and objects and go, like, from one half of the map to the other in, like, 5 seconds.
Oh, yeah, because you're blinking, just teleporting all the way through the buildings along the way. Yeah, off the bugs.
Yeah, like a form of goblin mode. Well, the best part was the way to pull that off was to put both your hands above your head, pointing downwards. You just look like a little gremlin running around. Should really capture some footage of that.
Yeah, I was supposed to. Yeah, I wanted to tease that footage.
Be a side grade.
Gremlin mode side grade?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Do we have any more questions in the chat?
Any new enemies coming soon?
No, I don't think we have any current plans for new enemies. Well, actually, I say it. Well, okay. So after we implement these new powers, we have as a stretch goal that may or may not happen depending on time, the idea of adding more permanent progression stuff around the city, which would take the form of like maybe a turret or a group of enemies that you kill and then they don't come back. With the idea being that you could then clear out entire regions of the city to make them safe by defeating all of the enemies there, and that's another way to progress in story mode. So that would include new enemies that would probably be more stationary, things like large turrets on top of buildings that shoot missiles at you. So these aren't definitely going to happen. They're only a maybe and only if we have time. So unfortunately, I can't confirm anything, but it is a possibility.
Can't spell unlikely for the life of me. Okay. Any more questions?
Why can't I type in this chat?
Which chat?
The October 1st one.
Do you have the debater role?
I do.
Oh yeah, you know what? Okay, you should be able to chat now. It's because
Hey, nice.
technically the permissions are based off of you having the gamer role and the debater role.
Oh no.
But none of the devs have that role by default. And the dev role is just kind of... That makes me wonder if you're missing access to any other channels you should have had. Maybe I should just go give everyone the gamer role.
Mhm.
It gotta be a
That's
gamer
just not us for
company.
gamers.
Actually, that's a question for everyone. What's your favorite non-VR game?
For us or for the audience?
I mean, for all of you. I mean, just because I'm in the Q&A doesn't mean I can't ask questions of it, right?
Favorite non-VR game? Asking a person who plays exactly like one game on a regular basis. If I say TFT, which is a League of Legends game, everyone's gonna laugh at me.
I'm seeing Minecraft and Terraria in the chat. I personally find modded Minecraft really fun, especially with a bunch of tech and magic mod packs.
Minecraft's a classic.
I would probably have to say, of all time, would be Halo 3. I had spent way too much time playing Halo 3 on the Xbox 360 back in the day. Behind that would be Jack and Daxter for PlayStation 2 as my favorite single player game. It's just got such a vibe and such an aesthetic to it, and I've replayed it at least a dozen times all the way through. Of more recent history, not being a boomer, I really like, not for replayability, but Soma as a really. I mean, I like marine biology, and I like the terror of the deep sea, and so Soma just really hits that itch for underwater horror. highly recommend it, especially during the month of October for anyone that hasn't played it. You can finish it in I think 7 or 8 hours. But it's a really cool game, going into some interesting philosophical arguments about AI also has underwater sea monsters.
Check S. Do you like Infinite? Halo Infinite?
That's I will say from the time that I've spent playing the multiplayer, I am not a huge fan of Infinite. I have not tried the actual story mode, so I don't want to comment on that. But at least the multiplayer has not inspired me. I haven't been a fan of the last couple of Halo multiplayers in comparison to Halo 3, and I think Halo Reach is really ends for me.
Yeah, I take it back. I really like Teamfight Tactics, TFT, but I also I really like Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Well, I've also played it on the Wii U, but Breath of the Wild in general, and I really want the second one to come out. I have been waiting literal years. Please just come out already.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer. Breath of the Wild is the best game.
Open world. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I wish I could make a game like Breath of the Wild, but part of the reason why it's so amazing is just because the world is so vast and so detailed. It's the kind of thing that you need a team of 300 artists to make.
Yep.
If I had a team of 300 artists, I would make Breath of the Wild. Oh, I am actually seeing a message in Twitch chat. To anyone watching on Twitch, hello. Best place to ask questions is Discord, but we're keeping an eye on the Twitch chat as well if you have questions there.
God of War 2018. God of War 2018 is the new. Is that the new God of War that came out? Has it been that long?
I don't remember what the last God of War was.
You have a question, thoughts on AI stuff. Could you be a bit more specific? What kind of AI stuff? So I have lots of thoughts on machine learning research, but I don't know if that's where you're going with it.
Oh no, Pilot. Oh no.
Oh, it's Papa Pink. Glorious.
No. I've made a mistake telling you what font we use. And Pilot already answered.
Image generation, things like that, like DALL-E 2 and Stable Diffusion. Yeah. I think they're a very cool technology. Things like being able to type in a prompt to a computer and then it generates an image to match that prompt is very, very useful. It's the kind of thing that I don't see a lot of applications for, at least commercially right now. But what it can do is people who didn't previously have access to, say, artwork can now generate artwork that's, while not perfect, is at least reasonable for getting started for some things. I was actually at a game jam recently, and one of the teams at that game jam used this kind of image generation to make the backgrounds for their levels. So they did that because you don't have time to draw all those backgrounds by hand in like a 2-day event. But if it's by the AI, it can draw as much as you need to. So I think it's a great tool for accessibility and for bringing, well, artwork and stuff to more people out there in the world.
That's why I said I made a mistake giving it to you, not that you made a mistake.
Oh yeah, check your profile pictures made with that. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, a lot of the I don't know how much you looked at the billboard stuff that we added, but several of those were AI generated in the most recent batch of images that I sent you.
Okay. There can actually be some copyright questions with AI generated stuff. It's kind of a gray area. But okay. Yeah, as just the thing to keep in mind is like if an AI is trained on some images from the internet and the images are possibly copyright, then the law is weird, and I don't think it's been fully figured out yet. Yeah. I'm wondering, did we have any questions from people who aren't here today that we should answer?
Yeah, we should still have some of those left. Master of Being Capture, we actually just answered that. So if you scroll up in the chat or you check the pinned messages, you can find the answer to it there.
Yeah, but I think I had Wings, then John had Claw, Aaron, Speed, and Maeve, you were...
Black Hole.
Yeah, Black Hole.
Underrated, always forgotten. Yeah, Check just pulled it out of there for you. Let me go pull out a question from long ago. Gotta scroll all the way up. Okay, we already answered that. Okay, from the White Crescent, when is the next update and what are your plans for the future of this game?
So yeah, I talked about this a bit before, but our general plan for the future is that we want to release on the full Quest store, and we want to add, 4 new movement modes. And once we have that, Superfly is going to be content complete. And I've been working on this for 4 years now, and we have other game concepts that we'll probably move to instead to make new VR games. The specific next update is going to probably... We need to decide exactly. We are going to have an update with 4 new movement modes soon-ish, by which I mean definitely within the next few months, but not this month. We do have a few other features we've been working on that we could release now. Things like we've did a revamp to the UI. There's been some physics changes that improved like the claw mode. We're working on adding more variety to the boats and various street objects that are kind of all smaller incremental features. So there's a decent chance that we'll have a more minor update with just those improvements soon, and a larger update with the 4 new movement modes is on the way. And we are currently planning to release all 4 new movement modes at the same time. But we will be doing beta tests before then. So keep an eye on the announcements here, because if you have a computer and you have Superfly on Steam, then we will be doing beta tests for the new movement modes once they're ready. They're not ready yet, but soon, hopefully. Ooh, another good question. Have we tried to make a night mode? Yeah, a night mode for Superfly would be really interesting, I think, because cities at night are just a wonderful landscape to be able to fly through. But they're also a pretty challenging landscape for computer graphics. And the reason for this is that in computer graphics, drawing lights can be expensive. Generally, the more light and the more different sources of light in the scene, the slower it is to draw all of them and to take them all into account. For a city at night, you don't have one main source of light that covers everything like you do during the day. Instead, you have a bunch of small sources of light that add up to together light up the entire thing. But because there's so many different small ones, and because they only have an effect when they're all combined, it can actually be really, really difficult for computers to deal with. So there are workarounds, and I don't want to get too technical into the computer graphics here, unless people are interested in that, in which case I'd love to talk about it. But some other tricks that other games could use to draw a city at night won't work so well for us because we have such a large city. If we had a smaller city, then we could do some tricks, but with a large one, yeah, Chuck's mentioning baked lights. We can't bake lighting because the city's too big. That would be gigabytes and gigabytes of texture memory alone. And it would also totally ruin the draw call optimization because we'd have to change the light bake time. I'm getting too much into technical details, but yeah. I would love to have a city at night, but to make it look right would be just too slow for computers. So at best, we'd have to do a lot of compromises on the lighting quality there. What about a rain mode? It's actually a very good question. That's a pretty good idea. We could totally do a rain mode. We have a snow mode. And I think rain is going to be probably pretty similar in terms of complexity. Computer graphics optimization complexity, I mean. Rain mode we could probably do, yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. We should add a rain mode. Gonna note that down on an internal checker.
Check says maybe the ground would be wet and you slip around. It'd be kind of fun, like puddles.
Yeah, we could do that. Change the physics dynamically.
Oh, what about the cars on the roads? Would they just all start hydroplaning?
They basically are already.
That's true. Would new player models ever be implemented?
Yeah, so we aren't currently planning to implement a player model. We did experiment in the past with adding models for your arms, and it didn't go so well. It turns out that unless you get it just right, trying to represent your player's arms, it can be tricky. If anything's wrong, it looks very, very wrong, and it feels very, very wrong.
Uncanny.
We have videos of our horrific old stick arms that were really not how arms are supposed to work. So yeah, given that it's a single player game, it's probably not worth the risk of it just looking horrible.
What are all these? What are all these Bobs? I just scrolled up and I see there's a Bob Jr. that's yellow and now a Grandpa Bob that looks like it's dead.
New lore?
God, there's already Cousin Grass, but shouldn't they not all be Bob then?
Maybe Bob is like their last name.
The family Bob into the Bobverse. Oh no. I heard you can't. Okay, Jake. I heard you can't add human characters as enemies, but what about robots that have human silhouettes? I'm not sure how those are different.
No, they're definitely different. And adding robots with a human silhouette is actually something that I had looked into in the past for a new kind of boss, kind of like a human titan that would walk around the city and that you would have to fight. Some of the challenges there is that humans actually have a very complicated shape. We have a body, we have arms, we have legs, we have a head, we have a bunch of joints. And the more complicated a shape is, the slower it will be for a computer to try to do physics with that shape. That's part of the reason why our current robots are so simple. They don't have any joints, because it's actually faster for the game to run without those joints. If we were to add kind of humanoid-ish shape enemies, they would have to be more limited, like there could only be maybe one or two out at once, like if it's a boss. Or they would have to have a lot more limited physics in how you could interact with them. Because of performance limitations of things like the Quest, where it can't handle too many joints with realistic physics.
Will you do anything for April Fool's Day in game? I will say we did do something for April Fool's Day in the Discord. I don't think you were here at that point, Pilot, but we didn't actually make any updates or changes to the game.
If we did do something for April Fool's Day in game, what should we do?
I don't tell people if we're going to do that, though.
Yeah, we can't.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Good point.
Spoilers?
We will just have to wait and see.
Technically, in the upside down mode, the bots are already upside down.
Any more bosses?
Currently, probably not. We're hoping to be done with Superfly soon, so that we can move on to exciting new VR projects. And bosses are very, very hard to make. John, how long did the turret boss take us total?
From when I started working on it, or from when it was first? Yeah,
Both.
I think I spent 6 months on it from when I first started touching it to when we actually released it.
Yeah, the first mention of the turret boss, I believe I looked it up when we put out the update that included it, and I think it was over a year. I think it might have been a year and 2 months or something.
So yeah, that's the challenge with having more bosses. If they would take us 6 months to a year to add each, we just don't have enough time to do that. And we can instead use that time to add other content that'll go a bit faster, but that'll still be really fun. Like the new powers, we're hoping will be, well, even more fun than new bosses, and also a lot faster for us to add.
More story.
That we could also look into, maybe tying in some more story events to the existing bosses we had. Person we had doing voice acting had been busy for a while, but was now able to rejoin the project. So it's a possibility. Can't promise anything, and I wouldn't count on it. But if there is a lot of interest in adding some more story content, which would probably be short dialogues or scripts that play when you fight the bosses, it's a possibility. Another thing related to that, we were looking into, kind of as a stretch goal for the story mode, adding permanent progression around the world. Like if you were to kill a specific enemy in an area and you come back to the area later, then the group of enemies there is gone. So you could slowly clear out regions of the city to make it safe. And that could be another opportunity to tie in story to this kind of progression in the game. But again, I can't make any promises.
All right, should I go? Let me go find another from the olden days. If I can actually scroll all the way up there. The question immediately after when is the next update is, are you gaming? Are we gaming, Roy?
Always.
ABC, always be gaming.
I think we already kind of answered this. What's going to happen after Superfly? What's the next big thing?
Yeah, I think we answered that one already.
Will there be spooky costumes for all the robots? It's also kind of the same thing as another one.
Yeah, we're not planning to have a Halloween update right now because we're really focused on adding 4 new movement modes. And a Halloween update would take away our time from that. It is something that maybe we could add to the future because we did have some spooky robot hats in the past that we could look into re-adding, maybe as an automatic thing where they turn on in October of every year.
When you this question specifically for Rory, when you test out new mechanics and things on Superfly, do you ever get distracted and just end up playing the game?
Yes, all the time. So I was at a game jam recently where I was working on this giant mode. It's one of the new powers for anyone who wasn't here earlier. Mode where you can just turn into a giant and pick up cars, play with them, grab onto buildings, throw yourself around the city. And the other people at the game jam were like, we're all busy developing here. We're trying to program things, and this guy's off in the corner just playing with a VR headset. This isn't fair. I was spending a bit too much time just playing around with Superfly and having fun with the game, and maybe not enough time doing the actual programming. It's very easy to get distracted by playing a game when you're trying to make the game. There are a few recent questions. Master Bean Capture is asking more skyscrapers.
Specific.
And a related question, bigger map. So we could make the map somewhat bigger, but there are limits to how big the map can be on the quest. The quest doesn't have enough computing power in it to handle things that are too big. The graphics just get too slow on it. On PC, we have a little bit more room, so we could make the map bigger there if people want. But I feel like it's fairly large already. It takes a very long time to cross to the other side of the map. If there is interest in making the map bigger, then it is something that is possible.
Didn't you have a super massive map prototype that one time? It was way too big.
Yes. So this isn't directly answering the question, but I think the people here might find it interesting, and it is related. I had been testing a kind of alternate map that was based on real-life data from New York City. Turns out the government of New York City publishes all of the data for every single building, every sidewalk, every road, every park. It's all online, free to use. So I was able to take that data and kind of convert it to the right format for Superfly, where I could generate the Superfly city to exactly match real New York City, including every building in exactly the right spot, at exactly the right height, all of the roads in exactly the right spots with the right sidewalks. Could do things like fly around through Central Park or go to Times Square, things like that. And it was pretty fun, but the map was way too big. It was something like 10 times the area of the current PC version of the map. So that'd be 40 times the area of the Quest version of the map. And that makes it take a really, really long time to cross to the other side of the map and to get anywhere. It's just, it gets boring, honestly. You're flying for too long. And that's not even beginning to talk about all the performance issues it caused, because when you have a map that's 10 times bigger, drawing the map is now 10 times slower. So it runs 10 times slower. And yeah, that would not cut it on the Quest. It was pretty cool, though. So as an alternate thing, it could maybe bring like a limited return if there's demand.
Check the pins. We did already answer that question. Master Bean Capture teleportation. So we also did answer kind of what the new powers are looking like too, and teleportation, some version of it is one of them, also in the pins. Screw the Quest. Yeah, well, we all kind of agree with that, but it's the most popular headset.
It's a challenge to make Superfly support the Quest, but it's a challenge that I think is worth doing, because there's so many people out there who have the Quest and nothing else, and don't have access to a PC to run the game on, and I want them to be able to access Superfly too.
Yeah. Could you add bridges?
Do that. It depends on the kind of bridges you're thinking. Like, bridges from the island to another island would be a bit of a challenge, because then we also have to make the other island. But something like a sky bridge that connects buildings, that's totally possible. Let's see. I see another question right after that. Any events coming on the server soon?
Oh boy, I think that's actually me for once. I did run a poll a little while ago. Pulling up the results of that, because that would change what the answer to this question is. What kind of events would you like to see? So we already did a VR game night. Doesn't mean we won't do it again. And right now we're doing the live Q&A. If I had to guess what the next event coming to the server is, would probably be a Jackbox / Among Us / Fall Guys, just like free multiplayer game night. Because those games are fun and they're really good for big and small groups, because like Jackbox has like audience participation. Among Us goes up to 15 people now. Fall Guys, obviously, you can have a few different parties going for that. But yeah, that's probably the next event on the server that's going to happen, is that sort of game night, non-VR.
Next up question we have from Har. What will you do with the map once the Quest Pro releases? When is the Quest Pro coming out? Didn't that just get announced?
Did it?
Well, I don't know if they've even formally announced it or whether you've just seen things through leaks. John, have you heard anything about that?
I have not really. No, not any more than anyone else. I mean, I know the headset's coming. I don't know anything else more though.
I think it's sort of like, in theory, if the Quest Pro is more powerful and if we are able to support it, but I don't know if it would be an automatic thing or not. But if we're able to support it, then I don't see why we wouldn't, because it would be more powerful than the regular Quest in theory. So maybe the map could be bigger, maybe not. It would really depend on what the hardware actually is.
Yeah, and we just don't know enough about the hardware to say for sure right now.
They let us use a different build on it.
We have a question from Master of Being Captured. Wall crawling for webs or wall running? So we used to have wall running as something that you could do with every power in the game. It caused a lot of physics issues and ended up being temporarily removed. It is something that could be added back with much better physics now that we figured out how to do that finally. With the speed mode, for example, the speed mode lets you wall runs. We could copy that onto the web mode. Wall crawling is also kind of possible already a little bit. With you can just shoot your spider web directly into the wall and it will attach you to it, and you could slowly crawl up that way. It is a suggestion that I've seen a lot of people suggest.
Yes, it comes up all the time.
So yeah, we could certainly do that. Actually, yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't do that. I'm going to add that to our internal list of things to add. Yeah, thank you for bringing up the suggestion again.
Oh, and I think there was something that got missed here. With PCVR, how big is the map able to be?
Yeah, so there's no strict size limit. It's more of how powerful is your computer. With the New York City version of the map, that was about 10 times the size of the existing map. And my computer, which has a pretty beefy graphics card, was not able to run it at a good frame rate. So if a very powerful computer can't run something that's 10 times bigger at a good frame rate, I'd say that a more reasonable computer might still have the upper limit of the map, maybe about as big as it is now, maybe about twice the size that it is right now. And more than that, you'll just have a lot of computers that can't run it. I think a bit related to that, there's a question from Czech. Instead of bigger maps, maybe different ones with different terrain features, things to fly through. So this is something that we've talked about with the dev team a good amount. And there are mixed opinions on what we could do for different maps. But we're currently thinking that we would rather add features to our main map than add an alternate map that wouldn't be necessarily a lot more restricted than the current one, because we haven't spent as much time on this alternate map. Things that we could do for the main map that we've been talking about that might make it a lot more interesting and a lot more varied features. Just to throw an idea out there is something that maybe could be implemented, but again, no promises. A kind of space invasion event. A bunch of spaceships fly above the map around the height of the blimps or a bit higher, and are now giant floating essentially platforms that you can swing off of with the web, grab onto with the claw, and it's like a whole new terrain, but way up in the sky, almost at the edge of space. I think that could be pretty fun to add. So yeah, that'd be the kind of new terrain feature that we would probably add to Superfly. Not a whole new map, but a new part of the existing map that adds a lot more options there.
Oh boy. I want to bring this one up because I just saw it. Can you make it so we can destroy the yacht?
Ooh, the big yacht. I would have said no, but the other day I did just figure out a good way to do destruction for billboards when I thought that wasn't possible before. So destruction for billboards is probably coming. Destruction for the yacht will probably be even tougher than destruction for billboards just because it's so big. But if it's possible for billboards, maybe it's possible for that too. It's something that we need to test internally. I don't know for sure whether it is technically possible at all. So maybe. We are working on destruction for all of the other boats for sure, as something that's going to happen. It's just the giant boat has an extra challenge.
Okay. Anyway, will you add multiplayer soon? I'm not even gonna let Rory answer that. No,
Okay.
multiplayer is never coming. Yeah, I'm sorry, it can't happen.
Yeah. And just to explain why, it's not that we're not adding multiplayer because we don't want it. Of course we want multiplayer. Multiplayer would be amazing if we could have it. It's just a giant technical challenge. Multiplayer games are the hardest kind of game to make. And I'm saying this as someone who has made multiplayer games in the past. There are so many extra things that you have to do to make a game work in multiplayer that you don't have to worry about in single player. Just to list a few things, you have to worry about desynchronization. You have to worry about making servers and connecting to them. You have to worry about transferring the state of every object in the game between all the players in the game. And when you have something with like Superfly that has hundreds of physics objects, if you had like a 5-player lobby, then that's 500 physics objects times 5 players that you have to synchronize at least probably 20 times per frame. That's already sending 500,000 messages per frame per person. So that's just the kind of thing that computers can't really handle right now. Well, right now in terms of technology. So you have to be very, very tricky and very, very smart in how you add multiplayer to a game with as much physics as Superfly. And if we were to try to do that, it would take us a year, at least. It would probably take us multiple years. It's just too hard. It's unfortunate.
Can we get Easter eggs? I think that's what Bob is, isn't it?
Bob's an Easter ball. Easter blob.
I don't think we're gonna, and he also specified more further down, Easter egg powers, Easter egg lore, Easter egg references. I don't know what an Easter egg power would be, but I would guess probably not. And like lore and references, again, I think that's just Bob. That's Bob and Grass. They're Easter eggs.
What about their extended family? When do we add those?
Yeah, apparently we have to add maybe that should be a new whole like quest thing for the story progression. You find Bob's entire family. They're all just
Oh, the
different like
secret
paint
story.
textures. Like one of them's like the concrete texture, one of them's like the sidewalk texture, one's like the road texture. Someone has a building texture, and they're all just different. It'd be funny.
Mhm. There's one question here that's scaring me.
Is it the swim floating physics?
Yes. So I feel like I shouldn't be the one to answer that one. Um, I guess, Maeve, do you want to explain anything about Scuba Fly?
No, I would rather not.
Okay. Fair. Well,
I
Aaron.
can happily
Oh,
explain
no.
it if you want.
Okay, Jake. If you're gonna be
So-
here for the Q&A, you have to explain Scuba Fly now.
Oh, I will happily do that. It's been a long-running joke within the dev team that a concept of Scuba Fly, which is literally just a copy. It's a satirical Superfly 2, basically, where it would just be literally the exact same game except you're underwater. Whoa! And Rory absolutely
doesn't make any
abhors the
sense.
idea. He hates it so much because it would ruin a lot of the physics and it just wouldn't be very fun. But we are pushing very hard. It's a very funny meme that
You call
everybody
it
loves.
Scuba
Except
Fly. Then you're underwater and you're flying. You can't fly underwater. You
Scuba
swim if you're
fly.
underwater. It doesn't work.
Well,
Think about it.
air
Air is a
also
liquid.
Air is a liquid. Yeah, exactly. Air is a medium, just like water.
Yeah, air has
and you're
very low
probably
air
flying.
resistance. Water will stop you in your tracks.
Well, that's
It's
an
like-
opinion.
No, it's physics.
Yeah, so when have we ever cared about physics, though?
Imagine you have the web slinger mode and you're trying to web sling off of buildings while underwater. You start swinging and then you just stop. And then you're just floating in the water. That's not fun. You can't web sling underwater.
Yeah, so a few of the people, myself included, have really wanted to push jokingly for Scuba Fly to become a reality, but sadly, Rory is in the way of what the people want. So
I'm
yeah,
hardcore
I hope that
anti-Scuba Fly.
explains it. I hope that explains it.
Semi-related to this, someone says, please make us able to run on water, which I have to kind of agree. Like, for the speed mode, I think running on water makes sense.
Can you
I
not do
thought
that
I-
right now?
I
you
thought
can.
on 1,000%, but that's basically just flying.
Yeah, but that's just
It's
flying.
pretty-
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is something that we totally should add. Also going to
Okay,
add that
well,
to
I
our list
assumed
of
it was already in
features.
the game. If it's not, then we should add it. Yeah, for sure.
And this would probably just be with the speed mode.
I think that makes sense.
Maybe like a tiny bit with the other modes, but speed definitely.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did see your other question come up earlier. Could you possibly add something like in Mission ISS where if you went up or down on the right joystick, you did a front flip or back flip? I know it would most likely be turned off by default and be in the settings or something.
Yeah. So it would definitely have to be turned off by default because rotating in VR can be very, very nauseating. It's like one of the core rules of VR development is that you never want to rotate the camera, and unless you have to, because it really messes up like your inner ear and your sensation of movement when you're not, and it will make a lot of people throw up. As an advanced option, something that you could turn on if you wanted to, that's possible. I remember I've seen another request for that. So, I mean, if the people want it, then we can do it. I will also add that one to the list.
Let me have that option. Pilot, you don't understand.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is something that would probably only be, for a few players who do choose to turn it on. So since it isn't going to affect most people playing the game, it probably would be lower down on our list of features than things that would affect everyone who plays Superfly. Like, doing flips in midair is fun, but it's maybe not as fun as 4 new movement modes.
It would be cool if you hit a robot and it ragdolled. I don't think they have enough limbs to ragdoll.
Yeah, they kind of don't. They just have these little side wing things.
Unless you mean they go limp.
But
or whatever. But that's kind of.
But they don't really have limbs.
They kind of just explode into pieces.
Yeah.
Those pieces are limp.
Right now, the robots do kind of ragdoll in the sense that other video games have it, where when you hit them, they play hit animations and then they're taken over by physics and they'll fly backwards. Like if you punch a robot with a claw, it just goes flying. Kind of like if you were to punch another character in another game, then if they're turning on ragdoll, then they go flying. It's just harder for us to show it because they don't have obvious limbs for that to happen with. And they will do things like if you flip them over, then they'll start falling because then they can't really push themselves upright as well until they right themselves.
What if you add a Bork power? Can you clarify what that means?
It means pork.
Is that just like literally like the joking version of a dog barking, or is this okay?
Appropriate response.
Bork. When is this Q&A gonna be done? I think I can answer that. I didn't allot a specific time limit for this, but I expected it would go around 2 hours, and we're about an hour and a half in. So yeah, probably wrapping up relatively soon, but people still have questions for now. If we get to a point where there are no more questions to be answered, then at that point it will probably end. Or when we get to around 7 o'clock, whichever happens first. Will what be added?
Little slorp de lorp de do be added.
Well, John, is it going to be added?
It's a fantastic question. We prototyped a couple different ways of doing that. What we found is that it's just not technically feasible yet. Maybe if you turn on RTX, it might work.
I
don't
when
have
did
a
they bring
graphics
RTX
card,
to the
though.
Quest?
Rory, when are we going to add ray tracing to Superfly?
Yeah. Pretty sure I actually did prototype that a long time ago, back in the Reality Lab there when I had your graphics cards to use. Yeah, I was messing around with ray tracing Unity there. I ran into problems where they assume that you are not going to trace rays farther than 50 meters. But in Superfly, I mean, 50 meters is a small building for us. So I can say that I actually pushed ray tracing so far that Unity was not able to handle it for Superfly. And then it didn't get added because, well, ray tracing plus VR is going to make any GPU explode.
If full body tracking was a built-in feature on every headset, how could it be utilized in Superfly?
Well, one thing that you could definitely do is you could have much better player models that you render in the game if you had full body tracking. Then you don't have to guess where your elbow is or where your legs are. You could actually just track that and show it in the game, and it would look great. Other uses for it, if, for example, we had full body tracking, we could do not only punching is physically simulated, so you can punch cars like now, but also kicking. Kicking cars would be pretty fun. We could have it so that for things like the thrusters mode, as well as the thrusters on your hands, we could have thrusters on your feet. So if anyone's acrobatic or athletic enough, you could move your feet around to fly instead of using your hands. It would be fun to have a claw side grade that also tracks your feet like that. So you have 2 claws for your hands and 2 for your feet. That'd be tough to control, though. We do have a future game VR concept that would make a lot better use of hand tracking and full body tracking.
Yeah, I would.
I can't share the details, though, yet.
It's a secret.
Yep, secret for now.
Traffic jams. We don't really have any formal traffic rules or anything. They don't pay attention to any traffic lights or anything, right?
Yeah, the cars are a little bit chaotic right now. So they will tend to naturally form traffic jams right now, which is totally intentional and not just them getting stuck. Trust me. Uh, yeah, for bigger traffic jams that you might be thinking where you have a lot of cars in a line, like you'd see during rush hour in actual New York City, one of the challenges there is, again, performance. Every car that you can see at the same time makes the game run slower. If we had a realistic traffic jam with 100 cars in a line, that would make the game run very, very slowly. So we have to have a trade-off of more cars are more fun to mess with, but also more cars make the game slower. So we've tried to strike a middle ground for that right now in terms of the number of cars in the city. Yeah, check. You have a good point. The cars are totally realistic simulations of Los Angeles drivers. And probably New York drivers too. So definitely intentional.
I'm walking here. Enemies spawn too much for me, so I clean up the streets when a bus hits a lamp, so I web it to a building. Yep. There are settings to... Can you only turn off enemy spawning overall, or can you adjust their spawn rate?
We currently only have a setting to turn them off entirely. If people want that, we could add a setting to adjust their spawn rate.
I think it'd be nice, but, I'm, only one person.
See a question from Czech. In simple terms, can you explain how the fake interiors work?
Oh, yeah.
So this is a question that I love to talk about because I'm a computer graphics person at heart. And fake interiors are one of the really, really cool techniques you can do in computer graphics. So without going into too much detail, because I don't want to take up an hour right now, fake interiors are a kind of shader. Shaders are like the code that runs on your GPU when it draws things. By writing a custom shader, you can tell your GPU to draw things in a special way. That's not how it would render them normally. In the case of fake interiors, the thing that your shader tells the GPU to do is, whenever you're drawing a pixel that represents the side of a building, check whether this pixel is a window. And if it is a window, then try to figure out what you would see through that window. And it does this by having just a very, very simplified model of the interior of the building, which will generally be a bunch of rectangular rooms. So then the shader can say, given that I know I'm looking through the window from this position in this direction, what part of the inside of the room, of this virtual room, would I see? And then it just renders that part. So the reason why this works so well is that you don't actually have to have a full 3D model for the interiors of your building. You just have to have a very, very simple, like, rectangular room model that you can describe mathematically to the GPU instead of giving it as data as a 3D model. And the mathematical description is much smaller and much faster. And that means that it's actually reasonable to have interiors everywhere. If you want more details on how that works or how I implemented the shader, then I could send you resources. There are some tutorials or free assets online that talk about fake interiors in more detail.
Oh, I know nothing about any of the code stuff, but I also worked on the actual interior models, you can call them themselves, and they're literally just PNGs that are made to look like there's actually depth.
Yeah, it takes just flat images for, like the background and the ceiling and stuff. And then the shader will try to convert them into oh, this image goes on the wall, this on the ceiling, this on the floor.
Can we break tower glass? No, because there's not actually any glass there.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the downside of the fake interiors that I was talking about is that there isn't actually anything on the inside, even though it looks like there is. So even if we tried to add glass that you could break and then look through, there wouldn't be anything for you to see on the other side. It's just a fake image that's on the glass. So breaking the glass means that it can't show that fake image anymore, and then there's like a void inside the building. And yeah, that wouldn't really work. And doing it the normal way where you'd have actual 3D models for every building interior would make the quest explode. It's already struggling as is, and that would kill performance.
Is the beta for the 2 work in progress powers on Steam yet? No.
No, it is not.
You will
Yeah.
be very clearly told. It will be announced. It'll be very obvious.
Yeah. And we're hoping to have that soon, but the powers are not ready yet. There's a bunch of bugs. Things like when you go giant size right now, but then you are also pull out the wing mode on your other hand, then you also get a giant sized wing, and then that just covers half the city. And it does not handle it very well. But for some reason, when you go giant size and pull out the claw on the other hand, it's a tiny claw, but the tiny claw is just as long as the original claw. I don't really know why. It doesn't handle that very well either. We need to fix the bugs, the obvious bugs, before we release it in beta.
This is very big words. Could the isometric drawings of the computer bytes be imported to the industrialized version of the quest? I don't know what that means.
I don't think that means anything. If you're trying to ask an actual question, I don't understand you.
They're typing. You don't understand me. Yes, we do not understand you.
Yeah, if that's an actual question, please feel free to rephrase that. There's another question I don't understand. Golden hour mode?
Golden hour is a very particular time in photography. That's sort of like right as or right before sunset.
So basically,
very pretty pictures.
We could have a sunset mode. So I mentioned earlier that nighttime has challenges with the lighting, but sunset doesn't have those challenges because it's still mostly lit by the sun. The shadows would be pretty tricky on the quest, but as long as people are fine with having the shadows not be very good on the quest, but still okay on the PC, then yeah, we could do that.
We have like
maybe
80s synthwave mode.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Bunch of palm trees, and everything's all purple and orange.
Yeah. I feel like a shader that colors all the buildings to be just bright purple and orange. That's doable. Could be pretty fun.
I've hit the pin limit and I didn't even know that was a thing.
Huh. Well, we might have to just not pin future responses.
I'm just removing some of the ones that probably didn't need to be pinned.
Okay. Axon, I see your new phrasing of that. I still don't think those are real words.
I think that might be the point.
Yeah. Check asks, favorite VR hardware? The index.
Chiyu, right?
Hmm?
The Chiyu, right?
Chiyu's interesting.
They don't even know what a Chiyu is.
Oh, for anyone who hasn't heard of the Chiyu, it is a headset developed by a Chinese VR company. It's kind of like a version of the Oculus Quest, but the Quest isn't sold in China, so this headset is sold in China instead of it. We've been trying to make Superfly, run on a broader variety of headsets. So we've been getting it to run on the GU headset recently.
There are also other VR headsets in China that serve essentially the exact same purpose as well. There's just a lot of competitors for similar Quest-like headsets.
Yeah. So Quest has totally dominated the market in the US and Europe, but not in China.
Speaking of other standalone headsets, what about Pico? Funny story there.
Yeah. We had looked into a port for Pico. This was back before we had the port for the Oculus Quest. So Superfly was very slow at the time. It turns out that it was also very slow on Pico, and we were unable to complete the port to Pico back then. It's something that we could look into right now, because I think they also now have a newer version of the Pico hardware than they had in the past. So it isn't something that we're actively developing, but it is a possibility. Oh, Pico 4 already? I thought they were only on the 3. Wow.
I thought they were on 2.
Oh, that 2 was the one that I tried to port to way back then.
Oh, Pilot, the pin limit is 50. At least in this thread or this formatted forum channel, it's 50. I don't know if it's different in regular channels.
Master of Being Capture asks, do you think if you had a fight with Chuck Norris, you would win? I feel like if you try to fight Chuck Norris, then it's like you lose before the fight even starts. Now, on the other hand, Aaron, if you were to fight Chuck Norris, different story.
He's getting older now.
Okay, Chuck Norris at what time?
Bold of
Chuck
you to
Norris
assume
50
he
years
ages.
from now?
That's true.
I'm pretty sure Chuck Norris would look at me and go, nah, I'm good. Not in like a threatening way, just in a why would I beat up that little girl kind of way. What's your favorite inside joke? I want to answer this one first. So besides Bob and everything else, this is kind of an old one from like basically right after the server happened, and that's Blimpy. I love Blimpy. There's Blimpy emojis. You can go find them if you want. They're in the server. But Blimpy was essentially one of our other devs, one of the other art people was talking about the blimps for some reason or another in the Discord. And then she just made this like shitty MS Paint drawing of one of the blimps from the game with there you go, with a smiley face on it. There's the original. And I love Blimpy so much. And then Check, I believe it was, language, yeah. Check made Bodhi, which is also an emoji that's in there. Or at least I'm pretty sure it was Check. Let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, that was you. Check's the only one that's been here that long. Check's been here as long as everyone, all the devs have been in the server. Yachty. Bodhi goes a little better. Anyway, that's my favorite inside joke. But Rory, Aaron, John, what's your favorite inside joke?
I know my least favorite one.
Oh, I think we are opposites there.
What are you gonna say?
Let's say it at the same time, right?
3, 2, 1.
Scuba
Fly. Woo! The best.
Why? It's not going to happen.
DLC.
Scuba Fly DLC confirmed. You heard it here first, folks.
It's
Rory
not
is
real.
definitely making it.
No.
And he's committing to it. So you can all hold him accountable for it.
Never. So Jake, if you wanted to make Scuba Fly and develop it all, Then
It's possible. No.
Not just Scuba Fly. Scuba Fly 2 when. We're skipping right to
Oh.
the
Yeah,
best.
we're you know what?
Just
Yeah,
goes-
if Scuba Fly is so good, why isn't there a Scuba Fly 2?
why isn't there? Why haven't you made it?
We need to work on that. We'll look into it.
Right after Backroom,
Do some,
right?
do some focus group testing.
Oh no.
John, did you have an answer that you were going to give to that one?
Yeah. Maybe one of the oldest inside jokes that we have, way back when, very early in development, when we were just figuring out what we were actually doing with this game, I offered my services in the extremely limited 3D modeling knowledge I have. And, the first thing that we thought of was, well, if we've got a giant city, what lives in a city besides people? Pigeons, of course. So let's put some pigeons in the game. But we didn't have any budget back then because we hadn't released this anywhere yet. So we were going to 3D model some pigeons, and that's what I did. I proceeded to waffle on this for the better part of a year, I think, of 3D modeling pigeons with like full animations that would like be all over the city and they'd fly away when you got near them. There's the photo of the pigeon I made.
Yep.
It
had an equally
So-
amazing flapping animation.
It had a fantastic flapping animation where its wings would just kind of grow out of its sides like a homunculus, and then it would start just like aggressively flapping in a completely unnatural way. And it didn't change anything else about the shape of its body. It was just standing in a perfectly upright position, but just with flapping wings. So that was a thing that was in development at some point, and I feel like every time somebody new joins the team, one of the things they talk about is, well, what I can do something simple. What if we just add like pigeons to it?
Or like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they made a turkey at some point. I forgot about that.
Oh, is that for Thanksgiving?
I think that was supposed to be Thanksgiving.
Why did
you
they?
never finished
I
it?
don't know, John. Why did pigeons not get added?
That's a good
They
question.
would smack into
You see-
buildings. I don't know.
We're not supposed to have animals in the game because we're trying to maintain our ESRB rating.
Uh-huh.
That's the reason. That's definitely the reason there's no pigeons. Maybe someday.
So I know someone, I believe it was Pilot, you suggested the pigeon boss, and I want you to know I immediately put that into our, private Discord server and tagged John in it. I'm just letting you know.
Just to torment him.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. It's great. I want to add it. I wish we could.
John brought this upon himself.
Just trying to help, man.
He'll be haunted by 3D models of
Also-
pigeons to his grave.
Did you make that robot pigeon boss image, Pilot? Yes and no. So you probably took some stuff from the internet. Yeah, that's fair. Neither did John.
What? Hey, I think my pigeon looks pretty good. It just doesn't move very well.
I couldn't find the video or whatever that you had of the wings trying to flap. I feel like that existed at some point, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, I have that. But there is a Blender file with a 3D modeled pigeon with an entire animation set for flapping wings.
Oh, there you go.
Please tell me you still have it.
I have no idea where it is at this point. I'd have to go. I think it's on my
John.
old computer.
Dropping the ball. Now when are we gonna add it to Superfly?
Disappointment. That's why we're gonna add Scuba Fly.
Oh, no.
Even
The underwater
I-
pigeons, of course. Of
I hope
course.
you know at this point that, like, even that though we have more of a budget now, we're going. If we ever add your pigeons, it's going to be yours.
Oh yeah, no, we can't.
matter
We can't
how much-
afford pigeon models.
No, like we, no matter if there's higher quality ones available, we're adding yours. It has to be done.
Robot gorilla boss fight throws robot bananas. That would be interesting. I mean, again, we don't really have time to add boss fights. That's why it's like the pigeon boss is a distant dream. But yeah, robot gorilla, that would be interesting.
See, the robot bananas bit, that's pretty compelling because
But
robot banana.
I mean,
Robot banana. Hmm.
we're just
Yeah, that but robot.
we're gonna go from Superfly to Super Monkey Ball.
Oh. That'd be kind of cool.
Super Monkey Fly.
With the camera rotation, of Super Monkey Ball. What happened to Dr. Suffer? Dr. Suffer is alive and well, and he is hiding in that tower in the center of the city, and he is the one sending all of the robots and all of the giant bosses after you. And yeah, he's probably not going to return just because we don't have time to add more bosses. But if we did add more bosses, then one of them would be like a giant mech that he's piloting.
He's gonna turn to Dr. Eggman.
Well, maybe that's his origin story.
If there was no imitations, I assume you meant limitations. If there was no limitations to what you guys could do, what would you add?
I have two things that I want to just say to start that off. First off, multiplayer. If I could add multiplayer, then I totally would add it. And the only reason it's on the game already is because I can't. I wish I could. And related to that, also add like multiplayer across VR and PC, so that the people in VR are like superheroes, but the people on PC who want to join in the game are like maybe more normal people just wandering around the city and trying to deal with all the superheroes messing things up. Which I think would be amazing if you ever had like a giant streamer playing the game in VR, and then all their fans could join in on PC, and that
Okay, so
that could be pretty
you
fun.
want to make The Boys, but but a game.
Well, but like, I mean, a little, yeah. As like a giant asymmetric multiplayer PvP game. The other thing that I would add if there were no limitations, full story mode. Dozens of bosses, whole like areas of the city to conquer and capture, lots of interesting characters and dialogue, all of that. Think like the Spider-Man PS4 game in terms of story. That had an amazing story. It had so many bosses, it had so much going on, it had so much detail. And if I could make Superfly like that, then I would. But, well, I can't.
A big roadblock is, well, there's two. One is time. It's a lot of time, and I think we said this before, but this is all like a passion project that all the dev team is doing on the side. So they all have either jobs or school, and that takes up a lot of time. Another one is I think we really struggle sometimes with we really don't have a lot of artists, 3D artists specifically.
Yeah. So if we had, a bunch of skilled 3D artists on the team, then it'd be a lot easier for us to do custom content, like custom characters or custom bosses and that kind of thing. What would everyone else add to Superfly if you had no limitations?
Literally any major feature that has ever been mentioned in this server so that people would stop asking me about it. Sorry.
Just so people would stop yelling at you.
Yeah,
And because it would make it a better game.
Oh, also, like, this isn't something to add, but, like, if I could have one thing that, like, people would stop mentioning is all the people on TikTok and even a couple people that have been in the server that go, why isn't the game free? It's not free because we spent thousands of hours on it. If you spent thousands of hours on something, you wouldn't want to give it away for free either.
And yeah, that's before even all the cost of purchasing assets and stuff and running a server for a website and all of that. It's Yeah. But if we had infinite resources, yeah, totally free. Share it with the world.
If you're good at something, never do it for free. Exactly. Will this update be the final one? Since we're probably going to have at least one minor update and then a major one, technically no. The next update would not be the actual technical last one. But after we add the 4 new powers, whenever that ends up being, and whatever other content ends up going in that update, that would most likely be the last update. And the only other changes or updates that we would be making would be like necessary bug fixes. Like, hey, this power isn't working, I'm stuck in the ground, and this is bad.
Yeah. We are definitely looking to be done with Superfly soon, because that means that we'll be able to move on to exciting new VR projects. And ones that, I think could go a lot of very, very exciting directions.
And learn
'Cause
from
they're-
our mistakes with Superfly as well.
And Pilot
Yeah.
also has a point, but
Yeah, but it's like Superfly is a very fun game as a sandbox. You can fly around wherever you want, pretty much do anything you want. You're incredibly powerful. And it's fun to be that powerful. But also, being that powerful makes it very hard to have any kinds of challenges. So, Superfly is easy. Beating the bosses, I mean, maybe you can't do it first try, but within a few tries, you can defeat the game, probably. If we were to make a new game from the ground up, we could scale it so that the player isn't overwhelmingly powerful, so we can have fair challenges. So then the game has a lot more replayability, because you have to get really good at the game to overcome the challenges, and then it's really rewarding once you do finally beat the game. So that'd be a reason to, well, starting from the ground up means that we could build a better foundation for a new game when it comes to design.
and with that, we're at 7:04. So I'm gonna give y'all one last chance to ask your final burning question that you must have answered, and then I think we should probably sign off, and many of us probably need to eat dinner. So type out your last final question.
So Master Being Capture asks about a shapeshifter power. That is something that we actually looked into. We looked into it in the context of like a hacking power that you take over cars or enemies and then control them and fly them around. We decided to probably not go that direction and instead add a portals power. One of the challenges with hacking is that if there aren't any enemies nearby or any cars nearby, then you're kind of stuck. And even if you do add a default thing, then you're still really limited in what you can do based on the things that are nearby. So it might be a lot more fun if you had options that were always available instead of ones that were only conditional.
All right. I think this will probably be the last question. Does Dr. Suffer endorse Robot Pigeon?
That's a tough one. I think he does. Yeah. Dr. Seffer, as the creator of all robots, is definitely in favor of robots that can disguise themselves as unassuming animals and spy on people in the city.
My kind of thought is that it was a toy pet project gone wrong. He was trying to make a robot pigeon for his cats to play with, and then it did not go well, and it killed a bunch of other robots, and it's very vicious.
And then they just spread across the city and you can't contain them.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the final boss, just like a swarm of tiny robot pigeons.
There you go. You don't win at the end, they just pick you up and roll credits.
They fly you out over the ocean, off into this. Well,
Just a couple of people typing, and then
okay.
Beat all bosses in under 10 minutes to get access to Scuba Fly.
Hey, who's to say that we haven't implemented that already?
Oh, now you gotta go find out. Go play the game. 100% the game.
You have to get a high score on every race simultaneously.
There you go. Pilot, you must be thinking really hard on whatever you're typing. As speedrun mode? Oh no.
That's kind of like the race missions.
I mean, yeah.
Hey, just if anyone wants to be like set world record for a speedrun of Superfly, it's out there. You can go do it and just submit it to a speedrun archive. Whoever does it first.
Already gonna do that. I thought someone was already gonna submit it to a speedrun thing somewhere. If Check's still here, I feel like he was part of that conversation, but I can't remember. You were going to.
I mean, it doesn't have to be 100% speedrun. It could be a
speedrun.
Every boss.
Pilot, if you want to reset the game without losing your data, one thing you can do, you can take your settings file, copy it somewhere else, and then delete it. Then if you want to restore your old data, you just copy the settings file back. A little hack you can do to temporarily reset the game without losing any progress. Should work. Probably.
If you're on the quest, though, I think the only way to reset your progress is to uninstall and reinstall the game, and I don't think you can get that back.
Yeah. If it's possible to mess with the files directly, then you could again mess with that same settings file, but you might need special programs to dig into the files.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't know if there's an easy way to get into the actual like meat and potatoes of the quest files. I don't want white power. Okay, now we're just getting off topic. So I'm gonna call it here. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for all your questions. I've pinned like 50 of them for poor Big Brain Isaac to come back to tomorrow and be like, Jesus Christ, why did you send so many messages? As well as anyone else who's in the UK who couldn't make it today. But yeah, this is definitely a better turnout than poor VR game night, which did not go great. And
I enjoyed it.
Okay, trying to add everyone. Please don't do that. Please don't. No, I saw. Anyway, yeah, what a way to end it off. And the next event, like I said, will probably be another sort of non-VR game night thing, and I will be posting more information about that soon once I know more about my own schedule. And it will be a non-VR game night, no VR, flat screen. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, I think that's it, and then yeah, I think the only way to like end this thing is like everyone has to leave the channel. So, well, I guess I can end the event, but I don't think that closes the channel.
But yeah, once again, thanks for coming, everyone, and thanks for asking questions. It's been great to talk to you all today.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Okay, that does kick everyone out of the channel.